Good morning. Welcome to this celebration of life. Thank you for being here this morning. I'm pleased to see so many folks, and just a brief thank you for being here in support of Barbara and the family. Following the service today, there will be a reception. It's all the way down at the other end of the building. This is just one long hallway, even though it doesn't seem that way. So just take a left and keep going. The restrooms are also down in that same direction, about halfway down the long hallway. So take a left, keep going, you'll see a sign that points you to the right, and there they are. Feel free to get up and use them at any point in the service. As part of our service today, I'm going to do a Thanksgiving and baptism, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in a bit. But following the service, if you want to come up and make the sign of the cross to dip your fingers in the waters of baptism, please feel free to do so. We're going to be singing some music as a part of this as well. One of the pieces of music is in the hymnal. It's the second song that we're going to sing. The other one is in the bulletin. It's on the insert. I think it's on the back page. So the first one we'll be singing is Simple Gifts, right there. The rest are in the hymnal. To clarify, because our hymnals are the same shape and color as our Bibles, the hymnal is the one that's a little bit bigger, but about the same shade of red. So when we sing Amazing Grace, that'll be there. And then our last song is, the lyrics are printed in the bulletin as well. Again, thank you for being here today. We begin our service with a brief moment of rest and meditation as we prepare our hearts and minds to be in this space. And we gather today in the name of the Creator and the Redeemer and the Sanctifier. Amen. The service is a little bit of a departure from a normal Lutheran service, but it shares pretty much kind of the same outline in that the first half of the service are prayers for Mel, and the second half of the service are kind of prayers for us. Two of the unique things that we're going to be doing, which I'm really excited about, the aforementioned Thanksgiving for baptism, which is actually a part of our ELCA service, but we're going to do it a little bit differently. But then also, we're going to be doing a committal towards the end of the service. And the committal are words that we normally say as we're commending the body to its resting place. What this came out of was during our conversations about planning the service, Barbara articulated kind of Mel's philosophy in a lot of ways, but how he saw himself in the world. And based on that, it resonated with words that I had used before in this service, and so felt that it's appropriate to share today. One of the things that Mel talked about as valuable but life-changing was his experience of baptism. In Lutheran traditions, we tend to do infant baptism, which has its own reasons, it carries its own different theological significances, but Mel was baptized in the tradition of you do it when you get to the age of accountability. And one of the things that he articulated was how much of a profound experience of freedom, cleansing, forgiveness that he experienced in that moment, a thing that I think that we Lutherans and others who do infant baptism miss out on sometimes. And in celebration of that, we want to remember Mel's baptism. One of the things that we claim in this is that baptism is, yes, something that we engage in, but it's also something that we call God's promises. So in baptism, we articulate, we announce the promises that God makes to us. And so we remember those promises today. Creation began in waters being separated from waters. Water is a main plot line in the story of the people of God. We cross rivers, we split rivers, we baptize ourselves in different bodies of water. And so part of the Christian tradition is this cleansing ritual, this pouring of the water over the head, the immersing in the water, this water that we claim is holy. And it's not holy because it's special, it's holy because it's where we encounter God. In Melvin's baptism, yes, he was cleansed, but he was also claimed. God made promises to him, promises of love, of presence, and promises that God would be there no matter where Melvin's life took him. And one of the promises that we call due today is the promise that God receives Melvin to his arms as a baptized child of God. And so we remember Melvin's baptism in the name of the Father, and in the name of the Son, and in the name of the Holy Spirit. Our opening piece of music is Simple Gifts, and it is found, like I said, on the back page of your bulletin. And Kit is going to be leading us in our music today. Feel free to sing out.
Please do. Yes. This one goes a little higher, but I'll be leading.
We have a couple different people who are going to share remembrances today. And so, Norman, if you want to come on up, that's your cue.
Yeah, okay. Sure. Boy. Thank you, Jesse.
You're welcome.
Well, obviously, I'm not used to this sort of thing, so
You can move the music.
there you go. Also, clearing my throat, notwithstanding. Thought I left all the frogs at home, but they're still in my throat. First of all, I forgot what I was going to say. But secondly, well, I want to thank everybody. I owe a debt of gratitude to every person seated here this morning. And, it's not like you also live next door here around the corner, that sort of thing. So we all know our lives are incredibly busy these days. And so, again, I just want to express my appreciation for each and every person that's hearing my voice. I appreciate everybody that showed up. I'm going to take the liberty here to read something that I wrote a few weeks ago. When can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Let's see here. Something that I say about myself, Norman Dyck can never give a short answer to a simple question, and I'm only saying that because I could get long-winded. Now that being said, I can tell you it's only 1, 2, 3, it's 4 paragraphs, and I'll take my seat, so. And it reads, "My words will never convey my gratitude that I hold in my heart for Melvin. I'm a better person." Let me repeat that. "I am a better person today for his lifelong mentoring." Think about that for a minute. You know, if we had more men in this world who had a brother who was an incredible mentor like Melvin was, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. "He gave me counsel, coaching, and care. He instilled me with values for developing needed social skills." I should underline that one. "I will miss most our grand adventures. To sit on the precipice while camped out on Yosemite's high country in the vast wilderness of the outback. To look down on creation from some high crest of an eagle's perch." And there's an emoji here of the American bald eagle with this outstretched wingspan of 6 feet. So there's the analogy, I guess you'd call it, the idea that I'm trying to convey. "Our phone conversations were always exceptional, educational, and entertaining." Think about that. "As we would discuss the latest news of a new discovery in the world of astronomy, or to be awed and blown away by a technological breakthrough or an amazing scientific discovery." Melvin and I had just commenced on our long and remaining bucket list. And by the way, this last paragraph, what I read, that's going to be the hardest part for me. Melvin, I've lost Melvin, but that was just a physical body. What I've lost is defined and described in this last paragraph. Melvin and I had just commenced on our long and remaining bucket list. I mean, after all, he was in the throes of moving to Kansas. But you got to remember, every time he made a trip to Home Depot or Lowe's, not only did he come home with his building material, but he came home with a new tool or 3. And it's like it's been said, he owned every tool that they've ever made, and he knew how to use it. So yeah, it would take 2 years to get rid of all that stuff so he could move back to Kansas. At least that was our thinking back then. However, now his life has been cut short. He leaves us reminded to live each day of our life to the fullest. You know, I mean, we've all heard that all our life, but now that Melvin's dead and gone, and my mother, as you know, most of you know, my mother passed on this last December 2nd. And then before that, I took care of Mom for a year, and then before that it was COVID for 2 years, and I digress. I'm free and 23. I'm doing a lot of traveling as of late. I don't know why I'm thinking of this more stories for another time. Anyway, so he leaves us reminded to live each of our days to the fullest. He will be dearly and thoroughly missed. Norman.
Thank you, Norman.
Mel's brother was going to share it. Barbara's brother was going to share it.
That's right.
A lot of people here are unaware of who I am.
A little closer to the mic, a little closer.
My name is Rob Allen. Barbara is my little sister. Mel was my brother-in-law. I'm going to read a few little stories about Mel's life. And I hope that they're poignant for most people. Now, Mel was born in Kansas in 1946. His young parents were struggling to make a life following World War II. Looking for opportunities, they packed up and moved to California when Mel was 4 years old. Mel never forgot his Kansas roots. He spent holidays on his Kansas family farm, and as a young teenager, he spent summers working in the fields. From his grandfather, Mel learned arguably one of his most important lessons in life, and that was at the end of a hard-working day in the hot fields to eat some nice homemade cooling ice cream. That was a daily ritual that they lived together. Yeah. Also in Kansas, he had his Uncle Jim. His Uncle Jim was his mentor and his hero. And Mel learned how to build, repurpose, and rebuild machinery that they had until it was working exactly the way that they wanted it. Engineering skills were outstanding. Yeah, pretty good. Now, when Mel was called to 1W service during the Vietnamese War, he decided to follow the path that his uncle had taken during the Korean War. And he headed to Roseburg, Oregon, which is about 3.5 hours south of here, and he worked in the VA hospital for 2 years, working with the veterans there. Now, when his service there was finished, he decided to spread his wings and go on a nice long cycling trip with his best friend Caleb. And an amusing anecdote he had was he spoke of their alarm when, after assembling their bicycles in the underground, they headed out into the streets of London, only to find a raucous cacophony of blaring horns of vehicles, and they were all going in the wrong direction. Can you imagine the scary fright of that? Yeah. So they quickly headed out to the countryside where things were much easier. Yeah. So that was a bit of a fright for him. Now, Mel also travelled a lot. He went to Central America with some friends, and the idea of that journey was to travel down the Pan-American Highway and adventure to see how far they could actually go. Now then, things got very precarious as the road came to an end. And the red van that they had so lovingly prepared for the journey had lost most of its parts and its shine on the way. But finally, when the exhaust fell off, they just let it rip. You can imagine the noise it was making all the way down there. But the guys made it home safely to tell the tale, but no one knows what happened to the van. And after that, a few years later, Mel actually got another van. He painted it yellow, decked it out with garish 1970s orange-brown inside, and he called the van Buttercup. He travelled many miles and miles in that van, sometimes alone, often with friends, visiting places all over the US. So he did a lot of travel. Buttercup took her last journey in 1997, when Mel and Barbara took a 7-week vacation. They travelled to the US, visiting friends, chasing the fall colours of the countryside, and this gave the great Barbara an education in American history. It was an inspiring, memorable trip through beautiful countryside, and they both enjoyed it very much. Now, as we probably all know, Mel was a talented designer and builder. He started early when he and his friend Wayne designed and built a hot rod when they were at school. It was an audacious project for 2 high school kids, and they actually won the school award that year with their achievements, so that was quite impressive. Yeah. And if you see the photographs later on in the other room, you'll see photographs of the hot rod. Yeah. Now, Mel spent many hours at the drawing board and many more renovating, restoring homes where he lived and where his friends lived. He was always working on houses and building construction things. He was always busy, yeah. He also had an interest in sailing. I'm sure some people are aware of that. Yeah. And this, of course, led to a long involved project. And he built a catamaran. And this grew into more of an interest, and he decided to improve on it and do a trimaran. Yeah. He got many people involved, and some of them actually helped him willingly. Yeah. But not many, however. Now, on moving to Oregon with Barbara, Mel took on the project of renovating their house. And just this summer, sitting outside with Barbara on a summer evening, he said he was pondering and he just couldn't believe how audacious he was to take on the project and think it was a really audacious thing to do. And how did I do that? But he did it. And it was a perfect job, and it was done so well that it's still standing. Right. We're all just walking each other home. This is a quote from Baba Ram Das. I'll say it again. We're all just walking each other home. Now, this little saying, this quote, really did resonate with Mel. He believed in our shared humanity, always with more questions than answers. He was a very good and great listener. He believed everyone had a story to tell, and it was important to give voice to, and it was important that everybody should be listened to. Yeah. He believed, yeah. Now, Mel was never happier. I'd never heard this term, but he was never happier when he was honking the heavies with his friends and brethren. And only then he would say, do we come to a better understanding? Yeah. And this was Mel's aim in life, to understand everything as well as he could. Yeah. Now, Mel's journey, his journey home is now complete. Many questions remain unanswered. Many stories left untold. His presence will be missed in many conversations and in the daily life of Barbara. And most people here, I'm sure. Yeah. Those of us who knew and loved Mel are thankful to have experienced that which was now in our lives, and that we had the privilege to walk some of the journey together. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Very good. Well done.
And Glenn has, come on up. Glenn has a bit of a multimedia presentation.
Good morning. My name is Glenn Hess, and I am part of what Mel used to say his brethren here in Oregon. So Mel and myself and Jim Russell walked for, thank you, we walked for about 10 years around the Milwaukie area, almost one day a week. So I suspect Mel started coming to Milwaukie Lutheran with his mother, who was deeply involved in the Peacemakers quilting group.
There we go.
Something should be said about his mother, who's deeply involved here in that. Many of you know Mel and his mom had Mennonite roots. And as we know, Mel grew up in Kansas and then to California with those Mennonite roots. So Jim and I are walking with Mel and having coffee for about 10 years. And Jim has deep Lutheran roots. In my denominational foundation denominations are Episcopalian and Catholic. Jim and I learned much about each other and about all of our different roots, whether it be Mennonite or Catholic or Episcopal or Lutheran. So Mel started out mostly as a carpenter and a designer. And then, like what has been said before, the Vietnam War occurred. So Mel chose to go to this Roseburg. Instead of military service, he chose to serve in a hospital in Roseburg, Oregon. So Roseburg, Oregon is south of here, like it's been said before, but they are vastly different from the Portland area. And he was talking about being down there in Roseburg and coming from his sheltered Mennonite roots. He talked much about that in our walks. And like has been said, I suspect this is how he became a lifelong nurse. About 6 months or so ago, I was down there in Roseburg and I brought in pictures. And it was a formation part of his life to be at that Roseburg VA hospital. And it changed his life. So, from what I understand, Mennonites don't necessarily have much of a musical heritage, but Mel still yearned for simple life and music. He did appreciate John Denver. And he had a special song about, a John Denver song about an uncle named Matthew, who grew up a Colby, Kansas farm boy. Was his mother's pride and joy, in eyes just as blue as a Kansas summer sky. Mel also appreciated the words to a Leonard Cohen song called Hallelujah. To this song affected Mel greatly because it questions your faith and belief and a lifelong searching that Mel obviously had. Mel was always questioning life. Many of us saw that when he was here at the Milwaukie Lutheran Adult Ed. He always asked great questions. And like his brother said, Mel was always a good listener. He always listened to what Jim and I had to say in our walks. Our decade-long conversations were snippets of our lives and our three Christian backgrounds. Many times we saw God's sense of humor with us, and God is winking at us on our path in life. So even though Jim and I are somewhat similar denominations with Lutheran, Catholic, and Episcopalians, Mel's roots were different, but still deeply Christian. In my opinion, we taught Mel about the everlasting Lutheran grace that Jim and I understand. That amazing grace.
779, Jim.
Shall we join in?
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch
Everybody that shared memories and stories, whenever I have a memorial service, this is actually one of the things that I find most valuable, especially because we get to know people in a really unique way. Like for me, I see folks at most once a week, sometimes a little less or a little more frequently than that. And I know them in a very specific way, right? I know them in this relationship, pastor to congregant or whatever. And so to hear stories about Mel's life beyond what I experienced here is very enriching. It's very fascinating to me to get to see the other pieces of the quilt that make up the patchwork of his life. One of the things that I forgot to remind us of is that the service is being live streamed. We've got folks across the pond, I think, that hope are able to tune in. If for any chance you have family members that were trying to access the stream and couldn't get it to work, it will be up on YouTube, and I'll make sure that Barbara has a link to it. So if you've got anybody that wants to see it, you will be able to watch it after the fact. I mentioned that I get to know everybody kind of differently. And Mel in particular, I got to know a little bit differently than I know most of the folks. In that, generally speaking, I see folks at worship on Sunday morning, and then I have to strong-arm them into coming to adult ed. So we used to do adult ed after the service. We've been doing it before since COVID due to the scheduling changes. But usually I would, just politely, continually invite folks, hey, you should come by, it's fun. Because while I enjoy, preaching and leading worship, I love doing adult ed. I love teaching. I get to talk longer, that's great. Nobody's like looking at me like, hey, your 15 minutes are up, bud. let's call it to a close, I got football to go watch, No, generally I get to talk a lot more, but it's also conversational as well. It's a back and forth, and one of the things that I value the most about that time is the in-depth conversations that we've had as a community. Mel definitely was a valuable part of it. But it's interesting, you tell stories about Mel and his collection of tools. My dad, who was born only a few months before Mel was born, is the exact same. He has a mantra which is, if you need to use it once, you should buy it, right? Because the worst case scenario is, you used it once, you can always, give it to your kids when you die, and they have to figure out what to do with the hundreds of thousands of dollars of woodworking tools that are in Michigan. So and I can't even make this up, he texted me 10 minutes ago with a picture of a lathe that he just bought. And I was just like, oh, Mel and him would have gotten along fabulously. So I met Mel in adult ed. I met him in this place of learning, which I've always kind of got my eye open, checking who's in the room. And back in the old days, 7, 8 years ago, I know, when I came here, right, I just turned 42 years ago, by the way. I'm old now. When I came here, everybody found out that I was born after 1980, and what they said to me is, oh, you were born after St. Helens. Apparently that's like a dividing line in terms of age. But in the ye old days, 7 or 8 years ago, we had a pretty healthy group of around 30 to 40 folks that would be there on Sunday morning, specifically for the education class. And so it was tougher to pick out people a little bit. But now I noticed, hopefully within the first week or two as a face outside the norm, But then, after a while, it sunk in that I didn't necessarily always see him in worship before or after, depending on the circumstances. And you can't help but wonder, okay, what's up? Okay, that's fine. I'm glad that you're coming to this. That works for me. And so, as I got to know Mel, one of the things that really impressed itself upon me is how intentional he was in his thinking and in his speaking. Something that I'm not super good at. I like to think, don't get me wrong, but I also like to talk a lot. I get it from my dad. Whereas Mel seemed, at least in my experiences, to be somebody who carefully chose their words and carefully chose their questions as a result. Glenn mentioned that some of the questions that Mel asked were questions that led to a much more rewarding conversation than whatever I was blathering on about before he asked it. But one of the moments that crystallized Mel in my mind was back in 2017. 2017 was the 500th anniversary of the Reformation of Lutheran nailing of 95 Theses in the door, which actually Reformation Sunday was just last weekend. And so we did all of my classes I say are variable length because I have no idea how long they're going to go. And so we did what ended up being almost a year-long study on Reformation history. And at one point, I was telling a story about this crazy thing that happened in Munster, Germany, back in the 17th or in the 16th century, wherein a group of Anabaptists took over the town of Munster, chased all the Lutherans and Catholics out, and chaos ensued. It's a very fascinating story. And I probably made some offhand remark about those crazy Anabaptists, and then Mel's hand goes up in the back. And I said, hey Mel, yeah, what do you think about that? Mel said, well, somebody that comes from an Anabaptist background. And I was immediately like, does anybody have a pry bar to pull my foot out of my mouth? But it actually turned out really great, because it created this great, he contributed an aspect of understanding that we didn't have in the room. And that was something that I took with me, and I appreciated every time I saw him on Sunday mornings, because I knew we were going to have a good conversation, because I knew he was going to ask a good question. And this is something that, to me, I find extremely, extremely valuable, not just in that setting, but in people in general, is I find that in an era where it's so easy to get information quickly, I find it so profound for somebody who spends that much time and that much intentionality in thinking about a topic or thinking about what they want to say. It seemed to me that every single thing that came out of Mel's mouth, especially when we're talking theology or history or politics or whatever, was something that he had been mulling over, he had been working on internally for a long time. When I asked, if there were any specific verses that, or Bible passages that were valuable to Mel, the one that Barbara remembered was a verse from Galatians. And it's just a simple verse. It says, take care that you are not to be tempted. Bear one another's burdens, and in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. Bear one another's burdens, and in this way you fulfill the law of Christ. It's a really simple, but in a lot of ways it's a really profound thing, and I wonder what that meant. I wonder what that meant for Mel, that it was that valuable. When I think about it, I think about what it means to be neighbors, what it means to love the people that we encounter. And I think loving is a harder thing than we make it out sometimes. I think that it's easy to have affection for, it's easy to have a warm spot in our hearts for people, but I think doing the work of loving people is actually work. And I wonder if in some way that filtered into what Mel thought about by bearing burdens. That one of the ways that you love people is by helping to carry the load. Helping to carry the load that others have, helping to carry the load that we carry collectively, or maybe helping moving a trimaran into the woodworking shop or wherever it was. But I wonder also, what that meant in terms of how Mel understood the world and himself. I know out of our conversations that one of the things that he spent a lot of time and energy thinking about is what it means to be a good person. What it means to be loved by God, what it means to be a person who follows Jesus, whatever context that takes. And again, for somebody who spends so much time and so much energy and so much intentionality thinking about things, I know that this is something that meant a lot to him. Did I do enough? Was I good enough? Did God love me? Am I forgiven for all of the things done and undone? And for me, it's really heartbreaking to think that that kind of anxiety is something that a person would carry with them, a burden that they feel that they would need to bear. And so I think it's really important today, as we celebrate the life of somebody who was so profound in his thought and in his thinking and in his speaking and in the way that he wanted to bear the burdens of people around him, that we acknowledge that that burden is lifted. One of the other things that Jesus says is, my yoke is easy and my burden is light. The path that we follow in being people who walk that way is not intended to be an onerous one. It's not intended to be one that makes us feel like failures, that makes us feel downtrodden. It's meant to be a freeing experience. Mel was baptized. He felt that freedom in that moment. And one of the things that we call due today is we call due the fact that, yes, in Mel's baptism he was claimed by God. He was named as a beloved child, created from the very dust that makes up our planet. Life was breathed into him. But also that if we believe in anything as people who follow the cross, that we believe that in the cross his burden is lifted from him. He doesn't have anything to worry about. There is no anxiety about good enough. Was I holy enough? Was I righteous enough? Do I need to worry about being forgiven? That is what grace is about. That's what we sang about. That now is even now in the community of all those who have been received into the arms of God. Mel was forgiven. Mel had that burden lifted from him. And Mel is even now enfolded in the loving arms of the divine, and there is no better place to be than that. We've got some very special music. A couple of Barbara and Mel's friends are going to sing a piece of music that was very special to him. It's always great to have a lot of good music during the service. All right, I mentioned before that one of the things that we're going to be doing today is a committal commendation. And so I mentioned during the sermon that Mel was created from the essence of creation. He was created from the atoms that make up our universe, a mixture of carbon and hydrogen, some oxygen thrown in there as well, and that dust, that dirt, that very Adamah, the earth that we come from, that was molded by God and had life breathed into it. Mel came from that, and he now returns to it. Our bodies are organic things, shaped from the same elements as the earth and all life that springs forth from it. We are universal beings in that the matter that makes up our limbs, our parts, and our brains was not newly created when we were born, but originates from the birth of the universe itself, maybe once existing in the heart of a star or in the clouds of a nebula. So when our bodies die, even our matter does not end. It merely returns to the place from which it was born. And so we commend back to God and the universe our brother Mel. And we commit his body to its resting place, earth to earth, ashes to ashes, and dust to dust.
Amen.
And I would invite you to pray with me. The prayer that our Father taught us, it is printed in your bulletin. Feel free to pray in whatever version you know best, Bill. Let us pray. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. All right, we've got one more song, but before we do that, let us depart with this blessing. On the back of your bulletins, you'll see another quote that Mel found valuable. To live is a blessing, to be is holy. And so, may your lives be a blessing. May your being be holy. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord's face shine on you. May the Lord look upon you with favor and give you peace. Amen. All right, this is a song that Peter, Paul, and Mary made popular in ye old days. Not so much, but hopefully.
You have any Adam jokes?
No, I don't. I know. There are various versions of this, but we're gonna sing one that comes up.
I love this song. So should we stand?
Yeah. You can't sing this without getting a little bit of blood flowing in your hands.
Oh
Go in peace and to love and serve the Lord. Thanks be to God. All right, I'm going to walk the family out first. But again, the reception's down at the other end of the hallway. The link to the live stream Barbara will have for those that want it. Otherwise, thank you again for